I'm sorry, I forgot to press record.
Okay. Lanolin? Lanolin? Like sheep's wool? I don't believe you.
Hello everyone and welcome back to
Kyle's channel.
Meeple. It is! Today is Kyle Day. We are here to introduce you to our lovely friend and new member of Foster the Meeple.
Yeah, Kyle Cornelius King.
I thought his middle name was Stacy.
No, I'm pretty sure it's
Tandy.
I'm pretty sure it's Cornelius the third.
Anyways, today Kyle is going to be sharing his top 10. We're not going to be taking up much more of your time. We're just very excited to be introducing him to you and the channel. So please enjoy Kyle Cornelius Tandy Stacy King's top 10 top 10 board games of all time.
Take it away, Kyle.
Off to you.
What up, fam? Welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about a channel all about board games and board gamey things. My name is Kyle, and I am new here. I thought I would go over my top 10 games of all time, give you a little bit better insight into what kind of games I like, since I'll be contributing to the channel a little bit. It's gonna be metal. And in true FTM fashion, I did not stick to 10 games. I have 12 that we're going to call top 11 because my 11 I couldn't decide between two games. My number 11A is A Feast for Odin by Uwe Rosenberg, and my 11B is Caverna by Uwe Rosenberg. Both of these games are phenomenal. I'm not going to go too far into why I like them or anything. I love Uwe Rosenberg, and you will not see an Uwe Rosenberg in my top 10, which is going to shock some people from the Discord, but that's why I had to shout them out. Give them an honorary mention. I love those games. They're fantastic. They're super pretty, charming to look at. So let's go into the top 10. Number 10 is a very little known game by a designer a designer named Jacob Frixilius called Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is a Tableau engine building game in which you're drafting cards, which I love drafting, to play in front of your Tableau. And when you play them, they're either going to trigger or you can use them in the future for something. But that's not exactly why I love the game. There's a ton of engine building games out there that do kind of what Terraforming Mars does in that realm and quicker. Like Wingspan is very similar to Terraforming Mars, Res Arcana, any of those engine building Tableau builder games, you get the same feel. But what makes Terraforming Mars great is the board in the middle. The whole point of Terraforming Mars is to terraform Mars, and every player is working cooperatively to do that. So this is a true semi-co-op, and not a lot of games do semi-co-op well, or they do it false. Like Marvel Legendaries calls it a semi-co-op. That's a cooperative game. I think Terraforming Mars is a true semi-co-op, and that is competitive, but everybody's working towards the same goal. I just think that's a really neat design choice because it's thematic, and it just makes the game just kind of sing. My number 9 game is Clans of Caledonia by someone. Juma Aljuju and Karma Games. So Clans of Caledonia is in the BGG Top 100. I still think it's criminally underrated. It's a game that I don't know if it got more than one print run. It's a game that could have endless expansions. It has had 0 expansions. But in Clans of Caledonia, it's very much of the vein of Terra Mystica and Gaia Project, if you're familiar with those. And the designer even states that those were some of his influences. It's got area control. On your turn, you're doing action selection. You have 8 actions. The actions are very, very simple. You can buy, or you can sell, or you can put people out on the board, or you can make your shipping better so you can expand across the map better. The scoring is kind of unique. It's really the trickiest part is like the scoring on the area because you have to have like these clusters of groups divided by rivers. But what I love about Clans of Caledonia is actually twofold. One is the stock market. The stock market is very, very simple in this game. Very bare bones supply and demand. And I think it does it super well. What I also like about the game is the contract fulfillment is just really, really cool. You need 4 steaks and 3 cheese and 1 milk to complete the contract. You turn all that stuff in, then you flip it over. It's going to have rewards for you right off the rip, but it also has these things called export goods, and whichever thing got sent the least amount of on contracts is going to be worth the most points at the end of the game. I just think manipulating those contracts is just really cool. That's really why I think Clans of Caledonia sings. My number 8 game is kind of a twofer. It's brass, but specifically Brass Lancashire. It's by Martin Wallace and Roxley Games. It is a kind of a route building game, heavy economics. Pretty much you're going to have a hand of cards, and every time you take an action, you're going to discard one of your cards. And the cards are either going to have an industry on it or they're going to have a city on it. And if you want to build in that city, you have to discard a city card. If you want to build a certain industry, you can discard that industry card to build somewhere. You only need cards for 2 of the 5 actions you can do, but you don't want to discard them because you may need them later. And you're like, I'm discarding this card because I don't need it now, but then you get later in the game, you're like, oh my god, I wish I had Westminster Abbey or whatever the cities are in England. Leanne will have to tell me. And it's very simple. That's something I love, is when something's crunchy, but the rule set is actually very easy. And I think that's why I like Lancashire a little bit more than Birmingham. One of my pals said that he thinks Lancashire works best at 3 and Birmingham works best at 4. And I really think that's true. And I would just always opt for Lancashire at 3 over Birmingham at 4, even though they're like really like that. And the Roxley edition is beautiful to look at. I love that dark setting. I think Jeff feels the same way. There's that kind of dingy, industrial looking England is just really, really cool. My number 7 game is a game that I've played the most of ever, and that game is Root by Cole Worley and Leader Games. And I played it a ton on the app this summer, and I'm sure you heard like Jeff and Jamie talk about it on a few of their videos, because we played it so much over the summer. It's like we had 2 or 3 games going at all times. The app really does, what's the word? It implements the game very well. It really helps you learn the game because you can't make illegal moves. Root is a coin game. Essentially, it's a watered down coin game, which means counterinsurgency, which is a style of war game where every faction is different, completely asymmetrical, and that can seem daunting. I think a lot of people see Root and they see the lovely forest animals and they see the cool theme and they're like, I want to try that, but then they hear about how daunting the rules teach is, and I agree that can be rough. But what's cool about Root is, even though everybody's asymmetric, there is a central core rule set that everybody abides by. Everybody's the same win condition. Get to 30. First person to get to 30 points wins the game. The player boards are just so good and so smartly laid out that after like 2 turns around, you're like, I got it. And you may not play it well, but at least you'll make legal moves. Another thing that Root does well is how you're playing the players more than you're playing the table. There are stronger factions than others. There's no doubt about that. Vagabond, the Woodland Alliance, much better than the Cats. Everybody knows that meta going into it. So it's like, we know the Cats are weak, we don't have to worry about it. And then the Cats are suddenly at 17 and you're like, oh, okay. So we got to deal with the Cats now. Once you develop that metagame with your friends and you can say like, you can start sandbagging it, and you just got like more sand. It just really creates great moments. And I think that's one of the reasons we played the game so much this summer, is we just had so much chirping going on. It became so much fun. I can't imagine if we were playing around the table, like feelings might have been hurt if we were in person. Number 6 on my top 100 is a pretty new game to me. I got it in the summer. I've played it a ton in gamer terms is like 4. I've played it 6 times. I'm like, I could write dissertation on this game. My number 6 game is by Luke Laurie and Breaking Games. It is Dwellings of Eldervale. And in this game, it is a worker placement game and a tableau builder. The map is where you're going to be putting workers. And each hex is either going to be take a resource off if you put your worker there, or do the action. And the actions are very simple. It's like buy a new worker, or build a dwelling, or buy a card and put a new tile on the map. Very simple stuff. But what makes Dwellings of Eldervale sing is the worker placement interaction is different than any other worker placement interaction in a game, because first off, there are NPC monsters that if you go to a hex adjacent to a monster, they rush in and you're going to have to fight them. Also, you can go to a hex that somebody else is already in, but then you're fighting them. That just makes a really neat design choice, because it allows everybody to do what they want, but it comes at a cost. And the battling is just like fun because you're rolling dice based on how many people you have in the fight and how many of your dwellings, which are these houses you put on for scoring, that you have around you. So you can roll some dice based on that number. It's a very simple combat system. It's whoever has the highest die is the winner. And people have got upset on about that online. They just think it's probably a little too luck-based, and I don't feel that way, because you can just make sure you have the dice advantage, and more often than not, it's going to work out in your favor. And rolling dice is fun. People, like, get over it. It makes this Euro game really, really fun. That's one neat thing about Dwelling of the Elder. I love the worker placement. I also love when you are out of workers, when you call them back, you're putting them on the cards on your tableau to activate more actions. When you pull back, you're activating these cards, which might even be better than putting workers on the board. You may need to call back just to activate those cards when you still have workers in hand. So I think that's a really, really good element in Dwelling of the Elder, and one of the reasons I love that game. Number 5. This is a Foster the Meeple favorite, people. I think I can speak for FTM right now in saying that this is probably single-handedly our favorite game, and that is Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Breaking news. We're just here to interrupt. That is false. Pandemic is not. It's just not.
Why would you
do that?
What are you doing?
We invited you here to our channel.
Why you
That is now your channel also. And you think you can come in here and sass us?
poop on our front step?
Yeah, you poo mouth.
You'll poop mouth?
How rude.
If it's anybody's first video, they do not like Pandemic. I am the outlier in that. I think Pandemic is just masterful design. It's balanced. You're either going to win close or you're going to lose close, and every game is a puzzle. And I think Pandemic gets a lot of crap for quarterbacking, and I'm sorry, if that's your complaint with Pandemic, it's because your friends suck. And let me explain what Pandemic is. So Pandemic's a cooperative game, and so that's why people think it has a quarterbacking problem, because in cooperative games, everybody's working together. Well, if one person thinks they're the smartest guy in the room, they can say like, oh, we need to do this, we need to go here, we need to go here, we need to do that, and then they can kind of take over the game, and like, yeah, that's not cool, that's not fun. But Pandemic is a cooperative game. Everything is pretty much open information, and on your turn you get to do 4 things. You can move, you can discard a card to move farther, you can trade cards, or you can heal a disease or something, take a cube off, because when these cubes are on the board, if there are 3 in a city and another one comes out, it explodes, and the cubes expand out, and if you run out of cube color, you lose. And if you run out of your deck, you lose. Like, there's just like multiple ways to lose. So you're constantly battling like with, oh, can we just let this city blow up? And yeah, it's going to explode into other cities, but that's okay because we're this close to winning. So it just really creates these interesting choices. So that's base Pandemic. Pandemic Legacy Season 1, my number 5, is probably my favorite gaming experience of all time. But what makes Pandemic Legacy so special is like the story in the game and the twists and turns, and you're adding in new elements every time. You're just like, it's just so incredible. And I don't want to get into too much of it, but there's something that happens, and I threw my hat because like I couldn't believe what was going on. It's just so exciting. It was just so fun to work with my friends on this, and we played it like 2 or 3 times a night for 5 or 6 weeks. It was just a really good experience. I love base Pandemic, and Legacy just gave it that story and those twists and turns that made it really, really fun. My number 4 game of all time has rocketed up. If I would have done this list this time last year, this game probably would have been in the 30s or 40s. But I played it a lot solo, and I think that's helped it a bit. There's also been a lot more content to come out for it, and that game is Marvel Champions by Fantasy Flight. It's one of their living card games. You're playing as a hero. Everybody gets to be one hero. My favorite, Peter Parker, Wanda, Steve Rogers, so Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man. Those are my 3 favorite heroes in the MCU. So you pick one of those and you face off against a villain. And so say you're Scarlet Witch and you're facing off against Thanos. And Thanos has a scheme he wants to do. And if he gets through his scheme, you lose. If he kills you, you lose. And your job is to kill him. And what makes Marvel Champions really thematically sing is every deck is unique to that character. So if you're Scarlet Witch, she dives into chaos magic, right? So she is very chaotic. She is very emotional. If you've seen WandaVision, you're going to be taking big swings. And if you're Iron Man, you start off like really, really weak, but as you add on like your helmet and your booster legs and your rocket arms, and you start playing these cards out in front of you, you start to get more powerful. You start to feel like Iron Man. You're making these bigger turns, and every deck feels like the character they are. And if that wasn't enough thematically, every hero has an alter ego side. So if you're Spider-Man, you can flip to Peter Parker. And when you're in Peter Parker, the villain can't hit you, but he will scheme because he knows you're off duty. And I think that's really cool. Every expansion makes me love it even more. The campaign games, Rise of Red Skull and Galaxy's Most Wanted, were so much fun to go through. And the story elements are not huge. Like, you're not going to be reading like you are in Gloomhaven. You're creating your own story, which is what I like. My number 3 game of all time is a game I just acquired not last Christmas, 2 Christmases ago now, and I played twice this year. The first game I played after I got vaccinated and my friends could come over, and that is Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. And this game is a mega event game. Everything you've heard about it is true. It will take you 12 hours, and it will be totally worth it. So in TI4, everybody is an alien race. And that alien race is a little bit asymmetric. Different ships, maybe 1 or 2 unique powers. It's a race to 10 points. Every round, a new card will get flipped over, which tells you how to score points, like having 8 resources or control 4 types of a planet, something like that. So it's a race of 10 points. The game kind of has like a Cold War element where you don't really want to get in a fight. So it creates a lot of negotiation with where you're positioned and what you can sacrifice from your fleet for somebody to get what they may need. But where this game really, really shines is when somebody reaches the middle hex, Mechatol Rex, it creates a whole new phase in the game called the agenda phase. And in the agenda phase, 2 cards get flipped over. One gets flipped over and you read it and you're going to be voting on it. And it's going to say something like, this is the law. Do you vote for or against it? And if it's for, do this thing. If it's against, do this thing. And there's one card in there that says, like, if you vote for this, every ship on a wormhole gets blown up. And if you vote against it, it's like discard an action card. So everybody that's on a wormhole is wanting it to be against because they don't want their ships blown up. And everybody that's not on a wormhole wants to vote for it because they want everybody's ships to go away. It's just so much fun to like politic and jockey around with your friends to be like, I'm going to vote for this. I hope you're okay with that. And of course they're not okay with that. So that's really fun. But the beauty of it is that there are 2 cards that come out. So the first one comes out and you vote on it and you use planets to pay for the votes. And then the second one comes out and it's something just as nuts, but you've already spent all your planets to vote, so you have no say in what's happening. And now the person that just lost all their ships on the wormholes, you got time to pay the piper. But the experience is so great. And you will be mentally exhausted at the end of the game, but it is so worth it. And I don't think everybody needs to own TI4. I don't even think everybody will like TI4. But if you ever get a chance to play for free or at like a con or something, somebody says like, hey, we need one more for TI4, I highly suggest you take the opportunity. My number 2 game of all time, it really hurts to be here at number 2. It was my favorite game for a long, long time. Probably since I think I bought it in 2017. It was my favorite up until this year. So it's been my favorite for 4 years. A game near and dear to my heart. And that is Scythe by Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemaier Games. So in Scythe, this is really a Euro game with Ameritrash pastings on, really good thematics, alternate World War I and Europe with beautiful art. It's got great components, but the game is about efficiency. You have a player board in front of you, a little faction mat, and those faction mats have little action rectangles. There are 4 actions. Every action has a top action and a bottom action. And so when you take your little pawn to place on an action, you can choose to do the top, and then you can choose to do the bottom. And the next time around, you have to move your pawn to one of the other 3 actions. Unless you have the break combo, but I don't think anybody uses that other than Jeff. You need to set yourself up to be able to do multiple top and bottom actions in a row. You really need to combo like, I'm going to go here to move, and then I'm going to do the bottom of your action to build, and then when my next turn I'm going to upgrade, and the next turn I'm going to go back over here where I can move and build again. And it's just really, really fun puzzle. I've played the game 30 times. I don't know how to play every faction mathematically the best. I don't think you need to. What makes Scythe great and why some people do not like Scythe is they want a war game. Fighting, rolling dice, high action, and that's not what Scythe is. Scythe is a Cold War game. Scythe is setting yourself up on different areas of the map to control, and you want to control them, and you want to make yourself powerful enough that nobody wants to fight you. That's where the tension comes in. Not every game needs to be, I'm going head to head with you. There is passive interaction in Scythe. So I think that's what I really actually do like about Scythe quite a bit, is that it's a Euro and you have really cool Euro mechanics of top action, bottom action, and resource management and board positioning. But there's also that tension of interaction with other players. Like, you're taking up hexes, that's hexes they can't be on. Was one of my favorite games for a long, long time. It's a game that when I bought it, I was like, first getting into the hobby, I'm like, I'm finally going to buy a big game. I had Carcassonne and King of Tokyo and all of those. And I was like, I'm going to buy me just a big, expensive game, and it's going to be a night, and we're going to have fun with it, and it's going to be our game. Kind of like Risk was when I was in high school. And it was. I don't see it leaving my top 5 anytime soon. It's so good. And that brings us finally to my number 1 game of all time. And let's just get to it, because I got a lot to say about it. It's Blood Rage by Eric M. Lang and Come On Games. It's an area control game, and the map is tiny. It's 9 realms, and each realm has like 3 or 4 villages that can hold 1 miniature in it. So each realm can hold 3 to 5 pieces. So it's an area control game, and it's a drafting game, and I love the drafting mechanic. What makes Blood Rage's drafting stand out above other drafting is, if anybody plays fantasy football, when you're drafting, which is the best part of the year, when you're drafting in fantasy football, you get to round 3, and you're like, these players suck, and you don't want any of them, and you're just kind of like taking them because you need to fill out your roster. Blood Rage is the opposite of that to me. When you're drafting in Blood Rage, every card seems so good. When I played it earlier this summer and I was teaching like Dolan and Max, I just remember saying like, I want all of these cards. And it's true. You're looking at all of them like, I can make that work. I can make that work. I can make that work. And there's some tension in drafting where it's like, it's a very easy choice. Boom, I'm taking that. And it's not in this game. And I think it's just really fun when you feel like no matter what card you take, you're going to be doing something cool with it. That's one of the things that makes that drafting stand out, especially because you're going to be hate drafting cards. Like in Terraforming Mars, when you hate draft, you're just going to pitch that card. You're not even going to buy it. But in Blood Rage, you will use that card, and you will use it advantageously. And the person that wanted that you hate drafted it from is going to see, you're like, I could have used that. And you're like, I know, but I'm better at the game than you, and I took it, and now I'm going to use it. Second thing I like about Blood Rage, every clan starts off bare bones the same. There's nothing special about you at all. But the cards you're drafting is what makes you asymmetric. So in Root, everybody's faction is asymmetric right off the rip. Scythe, every faction is asymmetric right off the rip. TI4, every faction's asymmetric right off the rip. But in Blood Rage, you build your asymmetry. You build your clan, how you want to build it, how you think will do well. And you can make your ships better. You can make your leader better. You can make your clan as a whole better. You can acquire monsters, all that stuff. I think in those other asymmetric games, it's going to be like, okay, I'm playing this faction, they're good at this, so I need to do this. In Blood Rage, you're saying like, I want to do this, so I will do this by building my faction the way I want. And I love that. I love a game that's asymmetric and it's not putting the game on rails for you. You're making the choices of how you're asymmetric. Blood Rage does that better than almost any other game I've played. Third reason I love Blood Rage, and this might be the top of the list, is I mentioned that the map is tight at the beginning. You're vying for control over a tight map already. But at the end of each round, Ragnarok happens. And one of those regions will be destroyed and be of no use the rest of the game. And not only thematically is that a beautiful thing, because Ragnarok is high in Viking lore, dying to go to Valhalla, dying an honorable death in battle. But it really creates like a knife and a phone booth type fight later in the game where everybody's vying for 4 areas instead of 8. Because of previous rounds, there could be already troops out on the map already, and just like, I have nowhere to go, but I really need to get to this spot because I have a quest that says like control Jotunheim or something like that. And it's just, I love how it scales towards the end of the game. It creates the battles. Whereas like some games you can like avoid battles, you can't in Blood Rage. And I think that's really why I really started to dig this game, because I really like that it forced the battles to happen. While Scythe was my love for a long time, I just think Blood Rage is just kind of more me. And now that we've gone through the top 10, I'll kind of wrap up and kind of go over like why I like these 10 games, because I think they all have very similar elements. One, I like player interaction a whole bunch. I like area control a whole bunch.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I have 7 of my top 10 games have some kind of area control in them. So I love area control, and I think that provides player interaction out the wazoo. I also love like economic games, which like Clans of Caledonia, Terraforming Mars to a little bit, Brass. I really like those games because those also provide player interaction. Area control, you're jockeying for position, but in like games like Brass and Clans of Caledonia, the stock market and stuff just creates kind of like a passive player interaction that I really enjoy, and I love manipulating other players. And don't get me wrong, I love like head down the Euros, like puzzle it out. It doesn't really matter what your opponent's doing. I like those too. But if you're talking about my favorite games of all time, I think you can truly see what I'm looking for in those 10. Well, that's about wraps it up. Jim, I hope I didn't screw that up. If you want to buy any of these games or any other games, may I suggest starting off at your friendly local game store. For those people up in Halifax, that's the Boardroom Game Cafe on Barrington. If you're in Columbus, Ohio, I like to go to the Guard Tower on Tradeview, about 15 minutes from me. That's all I have. Thank you so much to Jeff and Jamie for allowing me to be on the channel. Hopefully I get better as we go along. Please join our Discord if you want to talk about these games with me or anybody else. It's such an awesome community. I've had so much fun over these past few months talking to everybody, having fun, and like you truly get to know people in there. We all cut up, everybody asks themselves. It's a great time in the Discord. So if you want to come yell at me, post in the comments below. But if you want me to if you want to engage and discuss like why these games are good or why you think they're bad, come to the Discord and please join. And till then, I gotta say, stay sweet. A Feast for Odin. I feel like, was there one more thing I wanted to bring? And you have to deal with some Peter Parker. Like you have to deal with an eviction notice, or you have to go visit Aunt May's apartment to draw some more cards or something like that. It's just.
This isn't our video.
No.
Ah, gee. Oh, wait, I forgot to.
Oh no, that was so good.
Sorry, Jamie. I'm gonna start this one over again. Number 2. Well.